Welcome, welcome. Good morning, everybody. I am joined by my two co-hosts, Ethan Indigo and Ricard Calvadio. One, go ahead and tell them what you guys have been up to. Ethan, go ahead.
Well, great to be here. I'll just say, if for those that haven't seen your debate that you did the other day, they really got to check it out. Fantastic, really a lot of great information you guys shared, both of you, and you won. um, and that was really great discussion. And also, I just had a discussion with Eros the other day. If anyone wants to check that out. And I just finished an article on the quarter millennial of the world's biggest oligarchical collectivist nation currently, turning 250 this year. And I am also planning on putting together an article on the summation, the equation we came up with, the 64 divided by phi, starting to put that together. And I appreciate being here with you guys and discussing. So,
Sounds like you've been busy. Ricardo, what you been up to?
Well, I'm still in medicine, so I'm still working in here and helping in any way I can. Just working with Jim Shears and AES, Ancient Earthwork Society. So,
Very nice. Well, when is Shaman coming up there? Because I want to come see you.
so I'm hoping he comes this week, and I think he's going to give me a more definite date on the 15th. So that's why I didn't tell you anything yet. So I'm,
Okay.
I'm hoping for that and see if I can include some trips on some things around here that I think he and you would like to see. So
Well, we got Devil's Lake.
no,
That's nearby.
we're gonna go there for sure. Yes, yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
That would
So,
be a 2 hour walk that day alone. So maybe a little bit
yeah,
more. Yeah.
looking forward to it. Well, I got some live footage from me after the debate. There you go. Is it not loading for you guys?
No, it isn't. Have you posted this
I
on
can't.
X? I'm trying to put and I'm trying
No, this is
to tag
this is
you, and X doesn't allow me to tag you. It just says you don't exist.
it's so weird. Well, let me ask the chat. Do you guys see it in the chat?
Oh, there it
Um,
finally popped up for me. It finally popped up.
there we go.
No, I still don't have it.
Yeah. So-
Great. Funny.
I'm sorry, but it seems like we're having problems because we elevate the unreal above the real,
Hmm.
right? And so whether or not these concepts that Plato's talking about, it's so weird that it's not coming through. Maybe it's just my connection. I don't know, but it's
No, I saw it. I saw it.
I saw it right at the end when you cut it.
oh okay. It's just strange because it's been sitting
It's
down
taking
there
a
in the
long
feed
time.
forever.
Now it's there right
Now
away.
it's there. Yeah.
Howard saw it. Jug the goat didn't see it. That's weird. Headless over top of Plato. There we go. Somebody saw it. Anyways, yeah, but it seems like the Platonic ideal is to elevate the spiritual realms or this, ephemeral stuff over matter, and then to call matter and the place we live in total darkness, which is really kind of what we've been going through the last, whole cycle of Pisces. I think that's like the Piscean cycle. What they say is, oh, Pisces is an era of spirituality. But what happens to the more ephemeral sciences when you're talking about the soul and all these other things when it's relegated to a sphere that is unreal? Well, then it just gets dismissed, right? Because now that Platonic spirituality kind of puts it into a thing where it's in the same category as math, right? And math isn't something that they believe is, completely real. So they're elevating that and also saying that this realm of forms isn't tangible. You can't ever touch it, right? And when you put the soul and the spirit and all of this metaphysical, type phenomenon or physical phenomena that gets placed there, Why would you even study it if it's relegated to this sphere of forms that Plato's come up with? It's oversimplification and overgeneralization of a lot of phenomena that needs more examination. And I think that Platonic philosophies have been kind of holding us back.
It's interesting too how it kind of directly gave a philosophical background anyway to monotheism as we know it, and this is obviously led us to dark places, but in the same idea that we put forth put forward this more value to the place that's not here. In monotheism, the God of creation is not here either, right? And it kind of lends value to a being, the omniscient, omnipresent being outside of here. Whereas considering that creation is the creator, like here is of import, and here is the thing, is a very pagan idea, and it's much more valuable to the here and now. And Buddhists too have this argument, or this perspective to argue on placing value on the intangible and this realm that's not here. Like that's be present, like, and be here and now, right? It's a very, very important
Right.
thing
Like
in this.
the phrase 2 + 2 = 4 would be equated to eternity because 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. But that's a function of quantity. You have to observe the quantities first before coming up with these concepts of number, right? How do you get numbers without quantity? And quantity is a function of here. So with these eternal principles, right, it's still a function of what's here. So I say, let's reverse that, right? Let's say that the spirit emerges from here and see what happens, right? So material forms propagate first, and through the process of reactivity, you get these principles that come out, right? So quantity would be a function of the reactivity, and the changes in quantity are a function of reactivity. So let's just put the physical matter on top of the spirit for a little while and see if that makes a difference in our way of thinking. And I think we actually get to a better place of understanding things like free will, because essentially, if the immortal spirit world that holds all of these perfect forms and these perfect ideas isn't necessarily the emergent function, and maybe material, the temporal is the thing that creates the emergent forms, maybe that's what's important, right? So let's just flip it around. With the Egyptians, you could kind of say that they were doing that because the underworld was sort of like a conglomeration of all the things on the overworld. So they put the spirit sort of below them, and everybody was going into the underworld. And the underworld is the collection of all the things material as they pass through life.
I thought that they were pointing to the stars, so they go to the underworld and then to the stars.
Well, I think to them it's similar because it's this world of darkness that's connected in both realms. So as you're going through the underworld, like emerging into day, right? What's the Book of the Dead, as they call it, right? It's talking about the journey through the underworld, out the path of souls into the stars, right? So these are connected concepts. And even with the Greeks, you've got the connected concepts too. So the sun travels into the underworld, and then the stars are sort of like what happens when the sun is in the underworld. And then as the sun comes back up, like this journey into day, that's when you've got a new overworld produced. Right. So it's a constant renewal process where the sun has to go into the underworld and then return so that it can, produce light for the world.
Because if you look at it, for instance, in all forms of Christianity, you can do whatever you want. All you have to do is to ask forgiveness before you die, right? In Egyptian religion, if you can call it that, they were also only judged after death, but there is no forgiveness. You have to have your conduct, because Mahat is going to weigh the feather in your heart after death. So if you don't care about after death, you can be the biggest asshole while you are on the surface, on this reality. So there is no retribution in any of these religions while you are alive.
Well, even in the Greek and the Egyptian concepts, they consider the journey to the underworld to be the purification process before you return into the world of the living, right? So there would be that concept of, going through this purification process in the underworld to return to life again. And I think a lot of people miss that concept, as this purification also includes the people who have been shit during life. So even in the Egyptian concept, they wouldn't be facing an eternal punishment, but they probably would have to go through a purification process in the underworld so that they could, return unscathed to the world of the living. I'm not so sure about the Egyptian concepts of reincarnation, though, but it's a very clear reincarnation concept when it comes to Greek, and what the mystery schools are sort of based off of that Egyptian model as well, where you travel into the underworld to be purified and then reborn, and you see that rebirth concept sort of taking on a different dimension within Christianity, right? So he was reborn for you, so all you have to do is believe in him so that you can be reborn yourself in this afterlife. Very symbolic, I think.
But not very, how should I say it? It doesn't cause
Coherent.
what?
Not very coherent.
Yeah, but it doesn't cause you to take care of your conduct while you are alive, right?
That's not as important as belief. Conduct, that's secondary, but because again, it's the elevation of the spirit world above the matter or the physical. So when you're believing, that's a spiritual concept, and that spiritual concept is elevated above the actual deeds that are all sin or all low or all darkness, compared to the spirit world, which is eternal and everlasting and uncorruptible. So as long as you've got that key to the spirit world, it really doesn't matter what you do here.
Although we know that several figures tried to go to the underworld and bring people back, or whatever effect, and I can't remember one single myth where they were successful in that. They were successful to come out, some of them, of the underworld, some with rewards like Gilgamesh would become immortal, but all he could see was the shadow of Enkidu. He was never allowed to see him, only the shadow. So it implies that the spirit, even in the underworld, can cast a shadow, apparently. But it's like definitive once you fall, unless it's Hercules. Did Hercules manage to release his beloved from
No, he did go and kidnap Cerberus, which Cerberus is the guardian of the underworld.
That's what he did. Okay.
But
I'm
I think
going. I'm going to interview this fellow that says that in next month, that says that Hercules was not Greek. It was Iberian, from the Basque, and he has this presentation. And I see his slides, very compelling, very interesting. His concepts.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Basque are very ancient people, and I think we've gone over it a few times on here. But the Basque language is a language isolate. They don't have any other languages like it around Europe, and they think that it comes from the pre-corded ware. What were they called? The Bell Beaker Society. Like they're the remnants of the Bell Beakers who used to inhabit all of Europe. and now I guess they've been confined to one little spot in northern Spain. So
But there is a tribe right on the edge of the border between America and Canada that their language is still almost exactly like the Basque.
right. Well, there are Basque in diaspora around the world. I've met a woman who was Basque who was living in California. There's other people who have that sort of Basque lineage who have kind of been chopped off from the rest of them. But it's funny, you'll always be able to recognize a Basque because they're always going to be talking about how great the Basque people are. They really love their people.
Well, to me, this is debatable, and I got a lot of flack from one academic for saying this. But to me, they are one of the best candidates to still living, longest existing community under one name and one language. Because I defend that they were there at least for 8,000 years ago, and they were already there. And the whole of Iberia was decimated at the end of the megalithic age, and they weren't, which is a mystery. Why the hell did all the Visigoths and vassals and all of those that invaded this area at the end of the megalithic age that killed 96% of the male, but the Basque were not was still there? So either they had some kind of treaty or agreement or technology. I have no idea, but they survived while everybody else weren't. So everybody that lives in Iberia now doesn't know their origin because there were like 6 or 7 different peoples coming in and destroying everything. But the Basques were not affected, which is amazing to me.
Well, I think what a lot of people miss is when they're looking at Spanish culture and all of the architecture and all of the, uh, fashion and all the rest of this stuff that seems really ancient. That's Basque, right? So the Basque people had a huge influence on the culture of Spain and still do to this very day. So it's like all of that stuff that you think of as Spanish really kind of came through the Basque, and they constantly influence culture in that way because they make the best neighbors. There's just no doubt about it. If you live anywhere, you want to live next to the Basque because they're friendly people. They're very, cordial and nice. They're not, you would expect people who are so insular and so focused on themselves to be, more hostile to outsiders, but it seems like they're completely unthreatened by outsiders.
Go
And
say that to the Spanish government.
well, yeah, but they're the ones encroaching. They're the ones encroaching, though. It's like you can only push them so far, but it's they're
Name
the most
name one time in history the Spanish government has encroached another territory. Sorry, bad joke.
yeah. Well,
Well, they
there
did.
was a lot of
The Portuguese came out of Spanish
Well,
territory.
I just meant colonialism. They were a big.
Oh, yeah. Well,
It was
Well,
bad joke.
well,
isn't it
if,
funny that the people who get cut off from their roots are the first ones who go out and invade other people, right? Like anybody, if you think about the the Spanish and Portuguese, they had been occupied by Islam for what 400
Mm,
years,
oh,
and
more.
immediately afterwards, boom, they're over there in the New
right.
World and they're invading somebody else. So
It,
it seems
it
like
reminds me how Carl Jung said the the tortured become the best torturers.
absolutely
You,
right.
you have to keep in mind that neither the Spanish, neither the Portuguese that came out of a small Spanish county, very small, neither of them did that by themselves. It was thanks to the Templars' armies that they expelled the Moors. So Portugal only exists because of the Templars, and it's the only country in the world created for and by, in fact, it's by and for the Templars, which Spain isn't. But Spain also had Templar armies that helped them to repel the Moors, right?
Yeah.
Which I said many times, to me is very confusing. How a people that were under the jug of vassalage, owning nothing, you couldn't have a business, you couldn't own land, you have to pay taxes. Everything you grow is in your master's land, so you have to give them tribute for that. And the Moors arrived and said, "No, no, my friends, you want to be Christians? That's fine. Just give us 10% of whatever it is that you produce,
The
right? And
tax.
you can own land. You can be Christian. You can live your life, right?" And so they were free for the first time of their lives. And then came this people from the Spanish and mainly from the beginning of the Portuguese with the Afonso Henriques and Gualdin Pais, the leader of the Templars here. And they say, "No, no, just come and help us to throw the Moors away and let's go back to vassalage. Let's put you all working for us, taking all of your land, all of your business. Let's bring you back into slavery." And they all said, "Yes, yes, let's all die for you," which makes no sense at all.
Well, I think it's the cultural autonomy. I think what they do is they've recognized that as sort of being from their own people, as opposed to this taxation system, which didn't come from them. But it's interesting that the taxation system ultimately wins over vassalage, right? So there is kind of a linkage there. People are like, well, I'm tired of having all of my stuff owned by some other guy, so let's go to this other. And corporate structures work better in a taxation system as opposed to a vassalage system. So once you combine the vassalage system with the taxation system, then you get corporatism, right? And that's kind of the march there. Well, I just wanted to point out this. So let me see if I can pull this up a little bit clearer. This was the first sack of Rome in 390 BC, when Gaulish leader Brennus threw his sword onto the scales during a gold ransom payment, and he yelled, "Vae Victis." And this was the start of the Roman Empire, right? So after they get sacked for the very first time, they decide they're going to become the conquerors and go out there and destroy the rest of everybody else, and then assume ownership over the land. So it wasn't until this sort of invasion and sacking of Rome that they decide that they're going to never be invaded again. And, well, they did, obviously. But
Was this Brennus the leader of Asterix and Obelix village?
I'm not sure. Let me see if I can.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, because you know who Obelix and Asterix are, or you never read it.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, sort of. I think he was Gaul.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. So he managed to reach there and conquer Rome. So that's special.
This is such a great picture, though, right? So this right here is the let me see. This right here is the image that they've made of this gold ransom, where he's demanding tribute. And you could see here, he looks like one of those two characters you mentioned from the comic, right? And he's saying they're complaining that they have to pay so much money, right? And he says, "Vae Victis," and throws his sword onto the scales so that they have to pay even more.
Yeah.
So at that point, like this point of humiliation is what really sparks off the desire to never be occupied, never be terrorized again, and they go out there and do it to other people.
Yeah. That's it reminds me of how 1984 the sides are shifting, right? 1 minute Oceania is fighting East Asia, and then they're fighting Eurasia, right? Or whatever the name is, I forget. But
right, but at this point, Rome wasn't a major power source. And then immediately after this, they're like, actually, we can make the greatest land army in the world. And we can do, because really what set Rome apart was their tactics over land. And this is what defeated the phalanx. The phalanx of the Greeks was around for, close to 700 years. And then once the Roman army get out there with their new type of equipment, new type of weaponry, it was a completely different idea. And for a long time, Rome stayed a land empire, and then they decide, hey, you know what? We could do this water thing too. And they went after the Canaanite Phoenicians, who were the traders all over the Mediterranean, and they decide we're going to because again, all of the shipbuilding was state secret for the Canaanite Phoenicians. And it wasn't until one of these ships ran ashore that the Roman engineers were able to, you know, I guess you would say reverse engineer all of the elements, and then they added a cleat on the front of their boat. And that
Well, yeah. So they were trying to take over Carthage by that time, and the ships the ships from Carthage, they finally got that ship that you were talking about, and they reverse engineered, but they were still not good at it. They still lost many battles after that. But then someone came and said, okay, these guys are completely focused on ramming, because that's what Carthage would do. Their technology was ramming. They were not concerned with throwing spears or arrows or using fire. They were just so maneuverable. They just turn around and straight at the other guys and make a hole on the ship beneath the water line. So this Roman guy said, okay, we are really shitty at making boats maneuverable and we don't know how to do it, but we can install this enormous bridge right on the prow of our ships. We just need to get close enough. And they lowered that bridge with spikes into the Carthage ships, and they are stuck. And they managed to decimate the fleet for the first time. The fleet from Carthage was completely decimated with this, right? And so they thought, okay, now we have it. The problem is, it makes the ship so heavy in the prow that the slowest storm on ocean would just sink all the ships. So eventually they gave up on that and they conquered by land. They distracted Carthage in the naval battle while a vast army was going by land and creating a siege on Carthage. And that's how they managed to do it. Because
right.
they were
Well,
not good at ships. They weren't good at ships.
yeah, and Rome, was not good at building ships, but this was the thing that gave them the advantage, and it ruined because again they had all of the best land soldiers in the world, so all of these guys on the ship are ready to go kill,
Yeah.
and they can't get over to the enemy,
Yeah.
so they had to create a ramp of getting onto that other ship. So, but yeah, that's really all it took is once you can get all of your guys onto that other ship, they're screwed.
they,
So
they, 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 they had no chance. The problem is it made the ships very unstable, and on a slight storm after a major victory, they lost all the ships just the same because it was very heavy at the front to
right,
make the ships unstable.
right. But this is why metallurgy was such a closely guarded state secret, is because if you had the metallurgy to actually make these things lighter and stronger, you were the king. It was just that simple. It was pure physics. It wasn't even, you know, uh, any of the rest of this stuff. But, after this point, Carthage really became a descendant in the ancient world because, once the Punic Wars started, it was even Hannibal going into Rome, that was out of desperation,
Hmm.
you know, and even the Senate for Carthage was like, "Don't you dare! We need support here." And as soon as they invaded Rome over land, it was, well, you need to come back immediately because we're getting invaded by all of these Romans that decided to go into Spain and then down into Africa to go get them. So it was a interesting time, but a lot of this stuff is forgotten to history. And I think it needs to be remembered a little bit because these cycles are just repeating over and over and over again. And now we're having trouble in the Straits of Hormuz, right?
Do
I
we?
get, well, America, the global empire, not you guys,
So
probably.
it's not open yet?
We don't know anything because all we get is lies.
So we can destroy a whole country in a few days, but we can't open the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, again,
We
we're
we
in.
won, but we have to open the Strait of Hormuz too. We won though.
We won.
Oh, it's a one already.
We
Oh.
won.
Yeah, we won.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
worry about it.
yeah.
But also, we need to go back. We won, but we need to go
Also,
back.
we still need to do things and bomb them more. Yeah. Mission
It's just a
accomplished.
formality.
And
Bush,
are they
Bush the
going to
second would say.
take care of the people and the resources of the country, especially the resources? And
Well, no, we got to wipe out the whole civilization. Remember, that's what Trump said: is we got to wipe out the entire civilization. But also, we won, and don't worry about it. But
yeah,
This
it's
is
far
one of
away.
those-
It's far away. So
It's one of those time periods as we joke the darkness of the situation. It's one of those time periods where I feel like I must apologize as a United States citizen to the world, right? Like I'm sorry. I mean, of course we have no control over this, but it's like
have you
it's
seen
so
the Iranian
shameful.
propaganda?
It's like hilarious. It's on point.
Right, but they know exactly the situation we're in. We're like, what the hell are our leaders doing? They know that.
Well,
So
they're the Epstein class, just like they said. It's a cover up, and it's also I think it's a problem to set up for problems in November with the election too. I think it's all a setup and a cover up.
but it's so funny because like if you want to go back and revisit the Charlie Kirk situation, it makes perfect sense why he would have died exactly when he did. Because they had an agenda and they weren't about to lose one of their major recruiting tools, which was TPUSA, to a stupid military action that they can't seem to extricate anything from over there in Iran. And it's like, come on, guys, put it together. They were already planning to do this by the time Charlie Kirk got blasted.
Of course it was. Yeah. And this was also a contingency plan of the United States government too. Although it was also a plan by the Trump administration, as you point out. This is kind of two things kind of coming together in that respect. And,
yeah, but
and
is it really up to the president, whoever it is, or is he just following a protocol as in
that's
Europe?
what I'm saying. It was a contingency plan. Yeah, it was bigger. Even though Trump, I think, is using it as a cover up and a setup, it's also very much something that was
Because it might be the state that I am. I haven't found one single person to say good things about Trump. Right, and I'm not trying to go into politics.
Right.
I'm just trying to make this point. That is, when I ask the question, as an outsider, when I ask the question, okay, you don't like the guy, you don't agree with his politics, right? There's manifestations on the street every time I go into the center of the city with ice out and whatever it is. And when I ask, okay, so who do you put there? No one has the slightest idea. They're just criticizing. Criticizing is easy. But there's no solutions. None of these people have solutions. They only have criticism.
I think there's plenty of other people. I think that we get caught up. We are so caught up in the United States culturally with cult of personality context of politics. I don't think who is as important as what they represent currently.
Yeah, but no one is concerned about the state
Orwell,
and the powers of state. They are concerned about the figure people that they see in charge.
I don't disagree that people are stupid. And the United States is full of dumb fuckery.
Because I remember the elections and I know who the other ones were. The other ones were genocides, were eugenics people, were very bad people that if they would have gone, the little bit of power that they have as president would be devastating for the population because of the things they were trying to implement, like vaccinating everybody.
Well, Trump put forward the vaccination. Trump put forward the vaccination, and Peter Thiel is a much more threat to, great grandiose racism control and data operations, and he's not necessarily on the right even though he's affiliated with the powers that be. I would say he's beyond that. The powers that be that you're talking about, they're not partisan. They're connected with the power place, and Peter Thiel among them right now is very much right wing connected.
People don't become powerful. People don't become powerful by being ideological. They become powerful by being utilitarian. That's the main difference.
By being of use to the bigger power. That's more like it.
Or as Lord Acton put it, you don't get to be powerful by being honest. It's corruption attracts corruption, right? It's just the way it works. Look at the Trump administration. There, so many are connected to the Epstein files, and Epstein. It's like insane because the corrupt need corrupt around them.
Right. So I wanted to bring this up real quick. So this is strategic ambiguity. I think a lot of people miss this in the conspiracy community. It's a calculated diplomatic or organizational communication policy using deliberate vagueness to maintain flexibility, manage diverse stakeholder. Everybody knows what stakeholder means. Expectations and avoid conflict. It's frequently utilized in foreign policy, most notably in the U.S. One China policy that leaves uncertain whether the U.S. would militarily intervene to defend Taiwan. Well, that's one aspect. I think the entire government has become strategically ambiguous about absolutely everything. Like you look at any of these congressional oversight committees, and the one thing you can walk away with is these people don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right. I heard a joke, and it definitely applies to government, but the United States military has no idea what the fuck it is doing, and thereby its enemies can never know what they're doing either, and that's how they win. We're unpredictable. We don't know. Right. But it brings something I wanted to share today, actually. Let's see. A couple things related to Orwell. If I'm not cutting you off, Elvis.
No. Go ahead.
Let's see. Orwell. I think today he would be, worshipped, right? Because not only was the guy a writer, but he was critical of the English government. And of course, the Soviet government, and he fought fascists. He literally was one of many people at the time, relatively, who went to Spain before World War II, right? And it was the most complicated clusterfuck of a war there was in modernity, right? And he came out of that seeing that no one could be trusted. Everyone was essentially what he put the term oligarchical collectivists, right? This is coming through, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you zoom in a little bit? I can't really see the screen.
Yes. Let's see. This is from an essay called Politics and the English Language, a great, inspiring essay in its knowledge and wisdom, but also for writers. And I hope everyone gets a little bit of inspiration out of what are Orwell's 6 rules for writing. And I'll read them for those that are listening and not looking. 1, never use a metaphor, simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. Never use a long word where a short one will do. If it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. Never use the passive where you can use the active. Never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. And here is the most important one: break any of these rules sooner than say anything outright barbarous. And we have the emergence today of people saying, looking for the most nuanced and often, sometimes in kind of a barbaric sense, right? Um, People looking to communicate things to get a reaction, but not looking to have something of quantity. Um, so I just wanted to share that. And it's an article I wrote about the big if, something I've been thinking about because of this, what sequential oil war time period that we're in right now. If marijuana and hemp were legal, we would not be having oil wars right now. Again, and it's almost like uh, you know, cannabis is illegal because of hemp rather than the other way around, right? It's such an industrial powerhouse that it's the ultimate resource. Not only can it provide fuel, medicine, clothing, you can make
Plastics.
shelter, anything that's plastic you can make, and also it tricks me all the time that I feel good and that I'm happy. And actually the dopest thing about it is that it would be the ultimate resource, right? It would just completely um, disembowel any notion of having to pursue war for resources, or what is behind all this anyway is it's resource
Yeah,
stressor and resource war.
that alone tells you that there is no single president in control of his own country.
Well, I don't know. I think there's a lot more graft that could be had if you eliminate the easy and you go for things more complicated. Have you guys ever heard of the allegory that one of these libertarian economists came up with, where he was going over to China and he sees this trench being dug by like 200 guys with shovels, right? And they're digging with the shovels and they're like, and he asked the guy, he goes, why don't you use one of these big machines to dig that trench? And he goes, well, this is a jobs project, right? We need more people working on these jobs so that we can, pay the people what they're owed. And he goes, well, why don't you have them digging it with spoons?
More people.
Right, exactly. So efficiency is the enemy of autocracy, right? They need to have that inefficiency there, because essentially what autocrats do is they constantly feed off of the expenditures that are going on in the process. The what's that called? Anyways, I can't think of the word, but basically arbitrage. There we go. They feed on arbitrage, right? That's the best way to make money, is to get yourself in the middle of arbitrage, which is the transaction between two people to get something done, and you make money
Right.
off of the deal instead of actually making money doing any of the stuff. Arbitrage is
Don't
the
do a
perfect
thing.
way to make
That's
money.
why the Portuguese are brilliant, because you have a civil work, road, sewers, or cables installation, conducts, whatever it is, right? You make money from the first guy that comes in and just opens the goddamn hole. Then you make money from the guy that comes and
Yeah,
installs
hell
the
yeah.
actual thing. Then you make money from the guy that comes and covers it with dirt. But it's still not asphalted. It still has to come somebody to asphalt it, right? And then they remember, oh, we forgot to put this in. And they come and they open again and they dig again. And they do this for 3 or 4 times. So a job that one company would come, dig, install, cover, asphalt, one company can do this in 15 days. It goes for 6, 7, 8 months. and people are going into the road because they don't care. Everybody's making money. Everybody's making money except the people that are using the roads, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's how the
Well,
system
another
works.
thing Trump said was at the beginning of this war, he let it slip that don't worry about oil prices going up, and especially that just means people are making more money on the oil here. Don't worry about it, right? Like when prices go up or when people spend money, someone is making money. It's
Yeah,
not.
but it's subjective because I go here and the car
No,
that
I
the
don't
first
agree
car
with that. I don't agree
the
with pointing it out.
I'm just saying that it's a matter of perspective because when I was with a rental car, I topped the car twice with $40. In my country, it would take me 120, 130 euros to do that, right? And people were saying to me, "Oh, you spent $40. It used to be 25." Yeah, but it's still extremely cheap compared to outside,
Right.
right? I'm not saying that it's not better to be 20. I'm
But
just
it's
saying
more
that it's a matter
expensive
of
there now.
perspective. Sorry?
I think he's frozen.
The price has increased there too.
Oh, since I'm here, it increased $1,
Yeah, sure.
and I'm here for a month
Oh no, and I mean in
and a
Europe
week.
too. Like it's going up everywhere.
It's more than €2 a liter. A
I understand
liter.
that. I understand that, but I'm saying it's going up more
It is. It
because of what's happening. That's
and
all I'm
funny
saying.
enough, it's the diesel that it's more expensive now.
Of course,
Like here, because to us, diesel, that's why there are so many. 80% of the
of
cars
course,
in
and we
Europe
can
are
see
diesel.
that this is a big part of their power plays is to. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that a big part of their control system that you're pointing out, that like being critical of partisan colored personalities and or modalities, like that's BS. Behind it, what is behind it? This control system that is actually based on resource restriction. And again, hemp is the ultimate resource that we literally are fighting over what we interpret to be money and the expenses. But no, what's behind that?
And
The
it will
limitation of
be
resources in the world, right?
it will be so when when the industrial complex decide to turn into it. And vast fields that used to be corn or that will become hemp at that point because it's their interest.
Right. And they
The
did it.
problem is
They did
people
it before. They've done.
and all of these people protesting against oil and so on and so forth are forgetting that it's all a big lie. There is no problems with reservations in oil. There's more oil under the earth that we can ever spend. There is no lack of oil anywhere. It's all a lie. It's all an inflation process. There is so much oil under the earth that we could stay this and do this for another 5,000 years. We will have no lack of it. That's why they don't change. You see, at the
Well,
same time, they're saying,
that's
"Oh,
another
it's
layer
getting
too.
low." The oil reservations are getting low, and if we have to increase the prices because it's getting harder to get to the oil and so on and so forth. It's all excuses. All excuses. There is no lack
Even
of
though
oil.
if it was
We are producing oil as we
if it
speak. The
was
earth is producing it as we speak.
Ricardo, if it was set up at a way that we understood that oil was a process that was being created right now, it would still be oligarchical in its control system because it is not able to be a resource that's an, uh, you can't obtain the resource locally and everywhere. It would still be the few over the many with the
Yes,
mine
yes,
and refine setup. So
and that
what
is
I'm
part of
saying
the.
is that
That's part of the
when
game.
it's when it is an agriculturally sourced resource like hemp that can literally grow anywhere,
But
that
you
if
don't
we were
want that.
making plastic, I'm just pointing out the fact that we could have more empowered localization without these oligarchical corporate institutions on the mine, refine, burn process
Yeah.
with hemp. And again, like you said with plastic, if there was hemp plastic, we'd be telling people to litter. it wouldn't be don't litter and pick up trash. It'd be like throw that stuff in the soil. It makes it better.
But
And we know, and even doubly, it livens the soil with more minerals that it needs.
yeah, but the thing is, imagine you are focusing here in the States. Imagine the EU, okay?
No, I
The
mean,
EU,
no, I'm really no.
the
Globally.
EU,
This would empower localization globally.
these countries all gave their sovereignty to the EU that now regulates 80 to 90% of all laws that are made on these independent countries that are not independent at all, right? And it's the EU that govern what you produce, what you can extract for the soil, everything. So there's no chance that a country now decide, okay, we decided now to be independent on this or that product. You can't do it. It's the EU that says what kind of produce you can plant. It's the EU that tells you what kind of minerals you can extract. So there is no sovereignty. There is no own decision. They are completely
Sure.
under the jug
saying,
of this government, the central government that is under the central bank management. So it's not a government.
it's all resource restriction, isn't it?
Is a central bank governing, and below it you have the central government of the EU, and only after that you have each own government of the country. So we are being ruled by the central bank. We are not being ruled by anyone trying to. Not that they are caring about the population, but but it's not politics. It's money and management of resources.
It's arbitrage. So all of these increased
I love that. It's arbitrage. That's
right. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. So the EU is doing all of these policies and all of these things for the investors that are making money off of every liter of fuel being purchased. It's all arbitrage. What they're doing is they're benefiting the people who are purchasing and reselling at a profit. So arbitrage is the purchase of an asset in one market and the simultaneous sale in another at a higher price, capturing the temporary risk-free profit difference. Arbitrage is the market. That's really what it comes down to. And the way you make arbitrage more profitable for your investors is by including more of these steps to make it harder to produce. Right. So this is how you can bleed money dry out of a market, is by benefiting the people who are making the profit at arbitrage. Right. That's really the point. Now, none of us are making money at arbitrage. I mean, I guess you could say that if you're invested in the stock market, you could be making a profit at arbitrage, because that's essentially what a stock market is. And this is why everybody's like, oh, we need a higher stock market. It's like, no, a higher stock market means higher arbitrage prices for you, dummy. Right? So what the problem is we don't have arbitrage markets on these exotic fuel sources. I mean, they're exotic now, but there is that. So here's my idea. What if instead of selling the hemp and making the diesel fuel, well, I mean, John Diesel, not just diesel as in the fuel source, but basically all of the oil gets cold pressed out of the hemp, right? And then all of the leftover material can be put into lime and create hempcrete, which is a better building material than a lot of this other stuff. So you've got 3 or 4 or 5, because you could even use the excess material left over after the cold press for plastics as well.
The seeds can be eaten.
Right. So there's food potential there as well. But, that would actually, I'm just thinking about field to cold press, right? That's your first level of the arbitrage system. So you would be simultaneously buying and selling the stocks in these fields as it's getting ready to go to cold press. And then the second level from that is what happens with the waste products, which would be either made into plastics or made into hempcrete for building projects. But basically, the more waste products can be utilized from this whole system, the more arbitrage opportunity for ground level investment there are. And then, it becomes harder and harder to actually make a profit off of these other things, because the more waste products you make money off of, this is what they found out with oil. the more likely it is to be utilized in multiple systems. So the waste products of oil are plastics, all these other different things that can be refined out of the oil, even pharmaceuticals, right? So what they wanted to do is sort of not only get the energy, but all of the waste products as well in this arbitrage system, so that you can make money off of the things after the most valuable resource has been extracted from it. And I don't think that there's a way of doing this yet, but you could probably make an app that would do this on a calculated basis. And if you had it on a crypto market or something like that, you could automatically start to make arbitrage based off of what people are willing to grow in their fields, and they're going to be motivated to do that. The problem is there's no pricing models for this system yet because everybody's scared of regulation. And that regulation is what supports these other arbitrage systems.
Look, there are fields of industrial hemp in Portugal where weed is legal. Well, you can plant hemp. There's no legal against planting hemp, right? But if the reality is, if you try to plant hemp on a field, you'll find out that they don't care if it is THC weed or if it is hemp. So it has a very strict regulations of distance to the road and so on and so forth. If you go and look who are the people actually producing hemp and exporting it either for pharmaceutical purposes, for ludical purposes, or for industrial purposes, there are only 2 or 3 names on the list, and they are all related to someone that is in the government.
Yep.
Right, because
No one else-
it's all collectivism. It's all
No one
oligarchy.
else has the permits. No one else can manage the permits to do that.
It's almost like the mindset of these political controllers can't even fathom designing a system without oligarchical collectivism. It's just
It's not
like
possible. That's their job.
It's their job, right? If people don't know, as you talked about that process, Headless, it reminds me that actually a big part of why marijuana is prohibited in the United States is because of a great liar of the past, William Randolph Hearst. And he is the guy that they now attribute mostly with the term yellow journalism, what we would call lies. And
He smoked a
yellow
joint, got home and killed his mother.
This type of thing. And he actually was pointing out that a lot of Mexicans and melanated people would have anxiety attacks on marijuana and attack white women, type of yellow journalism BS. And he was a big part of getting it first prohibited in California. California was the first state to prohibit the resource. Why? Because William Randolph Hearst owned vast amounts of forests in Northern California, and his forests supplied the paper for the newspapers that he sold based on lies, sold and controlled. So we can see right there at the beginning of the prohibition, it was manure, and it was manure engaged towards a liar getting rich. Again,
and JP Morgan that just patented the production of rubber and plastics was financing all that publicity against hemp.
And they knew what a dramatic resource it was. Yep. And they knew.
Well, I wanted to bring up parallel construction because what I think a lot of people miss is that parallel construction isn't just about law enforcement. It's about all legislation as well. So parallel construction law enforcement is a controversial technique where agents create separate parallel investigation to justify an arrest, concealing how the actual case began, often masking unconstitutional warrantless surveillance. It's used to protect classified sources or investigative methods, but risks undermining legal accountability and due process. So it's a process where law enforcement officials, or I would say just universalize this to the rest of the government, after gathering intel through methods they want to keep hidden, in other words, private sector, right? So these are private contractors who are doing their own investigations, reinvestigate the case using standard methods. So instead of using the initial data to find the person guilty, what they'll do is they'll have a private investigator do illegal things to collect the evidence, and then they'll open an investigation of their own on an open source to say that all of the investigation was taking place over here instead of over here. Now imagine this when it comes to arbitrage. You've got all of your private resources over here whispering in the government's ear constantly about what they should be doing. They open up their own sort of investigation / report or whatever to justify all of the stuff going on over here. This is why strategic ambiguity is so important when it comes to parallel construction on the entire basis of the government apparatus. So if you can keep people confused enough, they're not going to see what the left hand is doing while the right hand is up in front of the cameras, right? So everything we know of as government can be essentially boiled down to parallel construction and strategic ambiguity. Those two concepts are what is managing our country and our world at this time, is because you're never going to see what's really doing the action first versus what's given to the public as the cover story. And then the cover story never actually makes any sense because it doesn't have to. It's already done.
It's also Orwell kind of raised a similarity in 1984 with doublethink and doublespeak, which Trump is like the doublespeak master. He'll use it in the same sentence, but also over hours and days, right? He's saying opposites, formulating the truth together. No, what? And now the latest I just seen, the U.S. is going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. As of an hour ago, a couple hours ago.
Right. Well, there's a bidding war going on behind the scenes.
Or many.
Sure, right. Well, they all want to control. They all want a peace. They all want to make a new place to tax, to arbitrage. They're going to turn into a new taxation place.
Yeah, but look, for instance, in Portugal, while the state is saying, "Oh, we'll have to raise the prices of oil again, of gas and diesel again because of this or that factor. Is it the war, or is the oppression, or is whatever it is, right?" But what they never say is, "Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm terribly sorry, but it so happens that almost 80% of the value that you are paying for the oil is actually taxes. It's not the price of the oil that is expensive. It's 75 to 77% of taxation on the price of the oil that goes to the government, right? Because oil is cheap. Oil is not an expensive commodity because there's so much of it, right? It has to be transported and refined, and they still can sell it at 30 cents a liter. The other 170, 75, and 180 euros is tax on 1 liter. Are you observing this? So you're paying more than
we all get it. This is the same all over the world.
We're paying more than €2 for 1 liter, and 170 to 180 of that price is taxes. It's not the price of the oil at all. Right? And if they change
in California, a lot of the.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, in California, I just shared a picture, headless, of gas prices in California. If you want to put it up, it's pretty high. In California, a lot of it is taxes, as you point out. a lot of it too is they might be horrible, they might help, I don't know. Chemicals that they put into the gas to retard it becoming aerosol, or something like that, to make its negative, consequences less bad, as they point out. But yeah, look at diesel, almost $9 pretty soon here. I bet.
Whoa.
Unbelievable. And we could be doing that with peanut oil, cold press, hemp, or
All of it.
vastly many different types of oil coming from vastly different, types of crops. You could probably even do it with the leftover stuff from lots of different trees, and anything that's got oil can go straight into a diesel engine.
Yeah.
And
Bug
that's
out on this. The original prohibition before hemp and marijuana prohibition was what? Alcohol prohibition. Alcohol used to be also another locally sourced fuel before the goddamned petrolithic oil monopolies took over the world planet resource control, right? Locally sourced alcohol was what people lit their houses with. Now, it caused a lot of home fires, but it
But they were
also
warm.
was locally
for a while until
Well,
the fires went out.
there were problems with, of course, fuel that sets things afire in less technological times, right? But that's not the reason they got rid of it. The reason they got rid of it is because it was a locally sourced biofuel. So during the time of prohibition, this Quaker idea, where we should get rid of alcohol because it's no good. Well, alcohol is no good. I don't agree with alcohol, but is it no good as a fuel? No, it's perfect as a fuel. And they got rid of it. All the locally owned granaries and distilleries were gotten rid of during prohibition, not just in the United States, as Ricardo knows better than I. European countries went through the same process during the same time period.
Right. So this regulation is the type of new, I think, well, as we started off with, the idea of these peasants decided to go with a system of, what's that called? Serfdom, as opposed to going with the system of taxation. Right. But once you've combined taxation and serfdom, that's when you get the corporatism. Right. And that's really where we see all of this arbitrage taking place, is that all the blue laws, which regulate alcohol, are still in place. Only it's the government that 100% regulates any alcohol. You're not allowed to have a still on your property without a tax stamp. You're not allowed to have this or that without a tax stamp, because this is how they control energy production. Right. This is not about your consumption. It's about energy consumption. If you can control energy consumption, you can have the serfdom control on everybody, because everybody requires energy.
Yep.
So I was looking for a particular book that I think everybody should read. And I think it's called also The King Goes Naked. And it's one of the best books for people to understand how hemp was regulated, why it was regulated, who are the people who did it. And this is a book.
The Emperor Wears No Clothes?
Sorry? Yes.
The Emperor Wears No Clothes.
No, it's not that. The Emperor Has No Clothes is a classic, but he used the same name.
I thought it was named that too. Right. Okay.
Yeah, he used the same name. I was trying to find it in my collection, but I have not put it in the.
No, I know that. I know that
section.
That is a fantastic.
And that's the book that I recommend everybody read. So when I started smoking, and my father told me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Okay, read this, and then we'll talk." Okay. And he read it.
That's great. That's great.
And he read it. He read it. The book. He said, "Oh, I did not know about this." So.
And back then we didn't know further about something we recently discovered. Not only is it helpful against certain cancers, our body's nervous system makeup has cannabinoid receptors, right? We don't have any other chemical receptors as far as the narcotic, right? No caffeine receptors, nothing like that.
No, but we have an
But we have
endocannabinoidal
cannabinoid
system.
receptors just waiting for it, almost as if it's like a necessary nutrient, one could argue.
Well, it should be because it's as vast as your nervous system.
Sure.
Vitamin M.
But as a final point on the fuel things is, even if they were not making fuel from hemp, if they legalized weed in Portugal, they didn't need to charge the 70% on the fuel, because they would make much
Yep.
more than that by people going to the store and buying it, right? The problem is, when that happens, they will not think that way. They'll think, ooh, we'll have another 70% to add of this 70% we already have in the fuels, right?
Right.
Because if they put the prices of fuel even at half of what they are, reducing the taxes at half, it would give so much freedom to people. It will facilitate everybody that has transport business, that have distribution business, people that want to go and travel. People are locked in their houses in the weekend because they can't afford the price of the fuel. They can't go anywhere, right? I live in a very tiny country that is smaller than the lakes in the United States, okay? And I spent $140 to go from the middle of the country to the very top north and come back again.
Oh wow!
And
Yeah.
driving very slowly through the countryside. It cost me 140 euros just to go to the north of the country and come back. So people don't have the money to travel. It's too expensive because you are making
Sure.
700 euros a month. In Europe we don't gain a week. It's not a week salary, it's a month's
And
salary.
we're all talking about the over pressure of resource restriction, right? Now, but what about the more subtle pressures, right? Imagine like if I was thinking about being a pilot or an infantryman, but I already had all the resources I need. Would I do that? If I was pressured into doing something diabolical with some circle of Epstein and you're a chick and if you don't have any resources, that pressure is there, right? You need resources. But if your resources are covered, if you already have food, clothing, shelter, and so on through growing hemp, for instance, these would not be even in consideration, I would suggest.
Yeah, but you could grow hemp, but then you need money to buy the machines that process that hemp. Otherwise, the hemp serves you for nothing.
If it was implemented as a resource and promoted as a resource widely as all like the subsidization of the Petrolithic era, we would just have people turn in the hemp that they grew at a local resource center and it would go to the refinery and they would get paid by the pound.
Okay, that sounds like a beautiful idea, doesn't it?
I know it sounds like a beautiful idea, but it's not that complicated.
Okay,
it's really
yes, but the problem is everybody is greedy. Not only the government, every citizen is greedy.
That's why that's why it's not happening.
They applied that to olives, right?
Okay, great.
So,
great.
Because
great
with the big landowners gone, right? So now the lands are divided in, they are big but smaller vasts of land, and so you don't have enough olives or olive trees to be able to buy yourself the equipment and make yourself your own olive oil, right? That we use so much.
Sure.
So what you do is you cut your olives. People even go into fields that no one takes them and say, "Oh, do you want your olives?" "Oh, no, if you take them, it's a favor you do to me." And so people go into everybody's fields that they can on their own, catch the olives, take them to an association that has the press, to create the oil, right? And you know how much these presses give you? They'll give you an average of 15% of the oil that they produce from your catched uh, um, olives.
They
15%.
also,
Some give you
they also
7%. And people have
I
no other
know that
choice.
I know that they do this in New England too with maple syrup, which requires extensive heating, not necessarily much processing, but it's quite a energy consuming
It
process
comes
for an
out really
individual.
watery, so you got to evaporate the water. That's what's going on with that.
Yeah, it requires quite a lot of time and effort, but it's not a big deal. It's not a big
Yeah,
process,
but
like
not olives. You
industrially
just need a
speaking.
hydraulic press.
No, I'm just saying that they're right. It's the same. It's simple, but it's time consuming and a lot of energy if you don't have the machine, right? Same thing with maple syrup production. They usually will bring it to a place that they do it in a big,
Yeah, but how
bigger
is that
system.
they are
So we
all
get it.
organized?
I'm not saying that like it's going to turn out perfect if there's greed involved. I'm saying it's an idea to contrast the globalization of
Sure, it
petrol.
is. But I'm giving you a concrete example of people trying to
Sure.
get some independence, right? And you catch them, you transport them, and you have to transport your product back to your house, right? They only use a tiny itsy bitsy of electricity to fill the goddamn compressor, or if it is oil, just to press your olives. Your olives are pressed, right? And they give you from, it used to be closer to 15, now it's closer to 7% of what you bring in. 7%,
Right.
right? And if you say, no, 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 I want all the oil that of the olives that I'm bringing in, and they charge you a fortune that is more expensive than going buy the very expensive oil in the supermarket.
Well,
But
that's
it's
great.
it's arbitrage, right? I
Because
mean,
it's a
that's
luxury to have your
right.
own oil. You understand? It's not something that you are doing for your survival or for your well-being. It's considered to be a luxury, and you caught it, you transported it, and you bring it back home, but it's a luxury because
Right.
it's an unrefined product. It's top quality. You understand? He has nothing added to it.
It's the mass consumption that is a necessity, and it's the actual good products that are a luxury. So go figure. I wanted to bring
Right,
this up. So
right.
you were talking about all these energy taxes. How is this any different than the serfdom restrictions? It legally bound peasants to their lord's land, making them unfree to move, marry, or change occupations without permission. As soon as you've got the energy control, then you can limit mobility. Then you can limit what they can, who they can talk to, who they can go see, and it makes basically fugitives out of anybody who has enough to move around, right? So you're seeing the 15-minute cities start. These are all corporate serfdoms, right? And so with parallel construction, strategic ambiguity, and high taxation, you're really no different than under a serfdom situation.
It's the same thing. Look, my grandfather, when
Maybe
he
even
bought the
worse.
property,
They had healthcare.
it was
Well,
1930
Christian
something.
healthcare.
1930 something when my grandfather bought the property. He had to go and ask authorization.
Spookism. Sorry.
He had to go and ask authorization from there were no lords at that time. There were no kings. There were no counts or whatever. But there was still the guy that was considered the rich person of the land. And the rich person of the land had rights to any terrain that was on sale. So you have to go to him and say, "Are you interested in this land? Can I buy it?" And he say, "Okay, you can buy it." And if you buy it, you still have to give him 10% of all you produce on that land, right? And this is outside any kingship kind of hierarchy. There
It's
are
just watered down feudalism at that point, huh?
exactly, right? And this is 1930 something, and you still
And
had to
now,
do that.
hey, 10%, that's
That's a steal.
Yeah, if that was the total of your
It's
taxation,
a steal, yeah, but
anyway,
realize this.
probably only part of it.
Realize that my grandfather would produce, let's make it simple, a ton of potatoes, right? He has to give 100 kilos to this guy. Now, how many hundreds to thousands of people had to give him 100
Oh yeah.
kilos?
Oh man, straight oligarchy.
Do you understand? That guy didn't need to do anything at all,
Just
just because
laughing.
just
You want
because
to
he
know how
born on
much
the right family.
right? You know how much a used cold press machine costs? $19,000. $19,000 to get a used cold press machine. So if you really want to make money on arbitrage in the olive oil market, $19,000 can get you in there, and you will give a profit much better to all of these farmers who grew the olives and transported it to you in the first place. So I mean, there's arbitrage opportunities, but you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to get a tax stamp. And you're going to have to cover all the overhead of all of the regulations before you can put that in. So if you're really thinking about it, what it comes down to is the power to tax is the power to destroy. And, you know, this cold press machine can be used for anything, right? That's the thing about cold press. It's not like it requires a temperature change. What they're saying is any temperature you put the plant material in there, you can extract cold press oil out of it. So $19,000 is a pretty good arbitrage opportunity. You're going to be making a 1% profit even after all these regulations. You're still going to make it out on top because, I mean, come on. You don't have to do anything but put a little electricity into it.
Sure, but it's still $9,000.
Well, 19. And that, you know, if you've
19.
got a reasonable bank, but you know, that's just that's talking about on the industrial scale. If we had more industrial entrepreneurs, I think we'd be better off. But I think the thing that keeps people out of becoming industrial entrepreneurs are the regulations.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you live in a
absolutely.
country that to give you an education costs more than $100,000.
For some people, it's way more for others.
So, which to me was
And
completely news.
we're at a
Because
point where actually all those expensive educations as of late are worth less than they pay for, right? Like the jobs that they learned to be are now AI potentially. You know, all these office jobs, corporate jobs, like are decreasing left and right. Should have learned to be a plumber at this point. That ain't disappearing.
yeah, but no, but the fact is, for instance, in Portugal and more Europe is not that different. Yeah, it's funny. Uh, the only professions that is really expensive to get a graduation for are professions that give you a lot of money, like a commercial pilot or a commercial ship captain, right? Those are the only professions that you have to be a really rich people in order to pay what it costs to, because it's not the state has no schools for that. You have to go in private to have that. So people that have aspirations to be this or that, they have to be within their ability to pay for that education or not, which is not democratic at all. Right? It's still a way of control. These things are very expensive in a way of control because it's not that the airlines are having lots of pilots; they need pilots constantly.
Right.
However, to be a pilot, it costs you. It starts with 120,000 euros for a start. It can cost you up to 300,000 euros to take that graduation. So obviously, people think many times before they decide to go, even people with money, because it's extremely expensive.
So this is what you can get out of
Yeah.
the waste products from cold pressed hemp to make fuel. It's called hempcrete. You just add a little bit of lime and water, and then that hemp product that was just cold pressed for all of its oil can now be used to build houses. Right. So with the waste product from the thing that you're using to make your car go, you can now start building houses. Tell me where the downside is. Now, again, you've
Right.
got to have these markets in place before anybody's willing to do it, which is kind of ass backwards if you ask me. But if you've got a lot of this waste product hemp laying around, you've got hempcrete. If you've got a lot of this waste product hemp laying around, you've got plastics. This is the problem, I think, is that you've got each and every one of these industries regulated to a point where doing this doesn't make sense anymore. Which I kind of feel like that's the reason for a revolution. I mean, there's a lot more profit to be made off of this stuff than anything else. But the problem is the investors are already entrenched and they have no appetite for conflict.
But the thing is, I saw 2 or 3 companies selling this type of construction in Portugal before I came on my trip. And the problem is, it's extremely cheap to produce, as you just described. So why are they selling it twice the price of normal construction? Why?
Well, they got to cover the overhead. That's the thing. All of these are startup companies, so there's a lot of equipment costs and a lot of other regulatory costs that go into the very first thing. So if it's costing more, it's because they've got to cover the overhead that got them into it.
Well, I'm not sure that's the truth, because this is being produced by the same companies that produce everything else. They're just limiting the access. They're making it a luxury because it's such a good material. So instead of being promoted as something that is cheap and extremely effective, it's being sold as a very luxury product, right? So
I think it's because not of its one use, but because of its conglomerate of uses. In other words, there's research too that it actually would facilitate better solar panel construction. It's a hyperconductive material. And it would basically, any oil influence on the whole petropharmacy that we have right now, unneeded. No longer would we need to poison ourselves with that shite. And energy, as we've gone over, and paper and clothing and building material, as we're talking about, all these things. So the current oligarchical systems, the conglomerate there is, they all are threatened by it, really.
Yeah, but they are threatened, but they could make more money if they changed. So it's not a matter of profit.
Sure. Well, you see it occurring. You see it occurring. They're slowly adopting
Just
it. Right?
Look at what's in the screen. So you going to killing people that work, because these people that drive electric cars, forget that the people that are making their batteries, especially those that are working on lithium-ion tanks, right? They are killing themselves doing this. Literally. It's highly toxic.
Batteries,
right?
Yeah.
And you read this and you ask, why the hell are they doing lithium ion? That is very hard to mine. It has to be transported across the ocean.
Well, it's because you mentioned it twice now, the overall resource restriction presentation in oil. And you just now presented how this is a luxury commodity and very limited. No, it's not, bitch. We can grow that in our backyard. Right?
Yes.
They're always presenting it as this limited resource, and you can't have access to it if it's actually good.
They will make money out of oil until they can't make money out of oil again.
I agree 100.
Right. So oil is especially powerful because it requires a very specialized process to get it out of the ground. This does not require a specialized process to get it out of the ground. It can be harvested like many other crops. The specialization and over specialization, I think, is the real problem, is because, again, it's digging with shovels or spoons, right? So what we want to do is we want to dig with spoons so that the government can maintain its arbitrage network. They have arbitrage friends who all of that money is liquid. They don't care what the government's going to do with it or not, but they like the friends that they already have. And they don't care if, they don't want new friends. It's all a big click, right? So the parallel construction, all of the things that they're willing to do for each other in these mutually beneficial relationships of parallel construction, those are what they're trying to preserve, right? And that's why we get all the strategic ambiguity, is because that network is what they're trying to keep. If you think about it in terms of social media, right? Social media influencers. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the whole MAGA split saga, but a lot of MAGA people have jumped ship and they're talking about the arbitrage network that goes on within the private messages of these MAGA influencers. And what the MAGA influencers are doing is, getting paid for retweets. They're getting paid for posts. They're getting paid for all of this stuff. And it's all about that arbitrage network. So they've got major corporate donors behind all of this stuff. Anybody willing to pay for tweets? I got news for you. You get a lot better advantage from people who have the authenticity seal, as opposed to these big influencers that only bots support. So the authenticity, I think, is the start of all of it. If you can have a more authentic take, if you can actually be true to yourself and your own belief systems, I think what you need to do is start to produce this stuff, and the investments will come, because these investors are getting killed in the stock market, not knowing from one day to the next what Trump is actually doing. And if they could have something more stable that is more, I guess, robust. Robust comes down to defense. If you're not willing to defend your hempcrete plant with force of arms against the police, we're never going to have a change in this world. I think that's really what it comes down to, because the police are going to keep coming and you're just going to have to keep shooting, right? So at this point, that's what it comes down to, is they're willing to defend their arbitrage network with violence, and we're not willing to defend the future visions that we have with violence, and the willingness to actually defend yourself in that capacity is the thing that separates the visions of the future at this point. I mean, how do you bankrupt people that have forced other people into bankruptcy to continue to survive?
Yeah, well, I understand that American perspective of power over power, but I think the real power here is not the power of weapons. I think the real power here is the power of knowledge. Because I give you an example. Farmers don't know anything that you just said. They just don't know it. And if someone tells them, they say, "Oh, bullshit. I've been doing this for 100 years. My father and my father before him, we know what we're doing." And if you tell them just this simple thing, okay, you have your crop, you have your corn, right? And then you get your corn out, and then you have to you have to plow your field, you have to fertilize it, you have to mix the land before you can do another crop, right? With hemp, all you have to do is take up your crop, whatever it is, and plant the hemp.
Yeah, it's
because
the roots, best rotational crop.
Because the roots of the hemp would bring azot, and I don't know the real name. I think it's azot,
nitrogen too. I think
would bring that, and will mass the soil underneath. It will what the plow does, the roots will do. So just by then taking that hemp out, collecting it, what's the name in English? Harvesting it, will have the soil ready for the next plantation. You don't need to spend money with tractors and plows and so on and so forth.
Ricardo, do you know what they do here in Wisconsin to promote healthier soils? They pay the farmers to leave their fields fallow.
No,
I'm not kidding. They pay the farmers to leave their fields empty. And you know what ends up happening with all those empty fields? It all blows away. So they got to have new topsoil brought in from the petrochemical plants the next year. Unbelievable.
You know that fertilizers, I don't know how the prices are now, but fertilizers reached a point a year and a half or 2 years ago that were more expensive than gold.
Oh, no, they're in the most precarious situation in history, because some of there's 2 or 3 things that they combine into modern fertilizer, and one of it being extracted from natural gas. Most of it comes from the Gulf. So fertilizer is going crazy right now as far as it's another resource limitation.
Why
Sorry to interject.
aren't there cow farms and pig farms in the United States? That's all
Yeah,
we
but
need.
they
Is
just
shite.
they no they make pig farms are especially notorious for their shit pools. I forget what they're called, but they just accumulate all the waste into big pools nearby. They don't
Oh,
do anything with it sensible. It's god
Jesus,
awful. It's god awful.
Jesus.
Organic farms, of course, utilize manure in the traditional sense. A lot of them, but yeah, it's not. It makes no sense. The large scale pig farms are notoriously ruinous.
Nasty. But for instance, this England in England, I saw people farming by you take the crop out, right? You harvest it, and then you put a moving chicken coop, right? And so the chickens start at the bottom of the field, and you keep moving them until they reach the end of
Sure.
the field. When they reach the end of the field, they move the whole of the soil. They fertilize it with their shite, right? And the field is ready to be planted again, right? So there are so many systems that are traditional to agriculture that should be implemented, and because of EU regulations and because of all this politics of these people that supposedly know what they're doing in terms of agricultural sustainability, they are just making a massive out of it so that some other people make money off the products they have to put in, right? And this is implemented in the teaching system, because when you're learning to be an engineer of agriculture, I don't know how you call it in England in here, but when you're becoming an engineer of agriculture, they don't teach you the traditional methods. They teach you all about petrochemical elements that should
Ah,
be added to the
good
fields, right?
lord.
Here in Wisconsin, we have 100-year-old machines. They're slurry machines that they take in all of the dung from the animals during the wintertime. They put them into these 100-year-old machines and they spray the fields with it.
Yes.
And it's like they've got Haber Bosch being used in all the rest of these other parts of the world, which is completely useless if they've got farm animals nearby. And, I mean, we don't do it here because it's just so insanely expensive. But this changes the cost of fertilizer across the board. It's, Haber Bosch actually, is a huge part of the petrochemical industry. It's just basically burning oil to create fertilizer, which is so
Yeah, which is
stupid.
stupid.
Insane.
It's
It's
stupid.
insane. No, it's beyond stupid, right?
They just most of the big farmers in the area that we have the property, they either have their own cows or their own pigs and so on, or they go and buy from that people because they don't know what to do with it, right? Because they can't store it, they can't put it in the ground because it's illegal. They have to do something, so it's put in these pools, as you call it, and then it's taken away. It's mixed with the hay and some kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's liquefied by a mixer, and then they go through the field with these cisterns, and it's doing exactly like this with the product. Well, there is a counter thing, that is, you go through these fields to go from a city to another, and you, oh my lord, it stinks in here. You know exactly when they're dumping these products on the field.
You always know it's slurry season.
Yeah. But it's natural. Is this legal? Probably it isn't, because the government doesn't want you to put direct shite from animals into the fields, right? But they can't afford to buy the fertilizers. They're insane. They'll have 1 or 2 bags. So if the guys come from the regulation entities, how are you using to fertilize your fields? Oh, that very expensive. But that's what that's what why you're
This
using.
is this is why they're 100-year-old machines, Ricardo. That's why I was stressing that point, is because they can't produce them anymore. It's considered illegal. So these are all grandfathered in machines from the early 1900s that are being used to slurry crops today because you can't produce anymore. It's insane.
Well, when Portugal fell into the EU, we had the tradition of being how you say it, self
Sufficient.
sufficient in agriculture, because it's been a country producing agriculture for millennia, right? And then came the EU and start telling these families, what are you going to plant this year? Oh, we've selected the best seeds that we have from many generations. What? No, that's totally illegal. Totally illegal. From now on, you have to throw all those seeds away and you have to buy the seeds that we
Yeah, they
say
did
are
that here
good,
too. They did that here.
right? So
Yep,
you
they
now
did that
have to
here.
buy seeds from the government every single year. When I say from the government, notice that I'm not
Wow,
talking about the president, a minister. I'm talking about
that's
the
stinky.
EU. It's an
Stinky
obscure
as
organization that no
fuck,
one knows who
right?
it is, right? So you have to buy every year. They give you the seeds for you to farm. You cannot select your own seeds because farmers apparently are
That's
stupid. They are only doing this for 1,000 generations, so they don't know what they're doing. It's this bureaucrats that just came
and
out of
it's
some school that know.
it's another example of how they want to make things monothematic. It's monoculture, they call it often, right? Where, oh, there's only one type of corn. Wait, what? Of course, there's so many different types of corn. There's only you can only get the Bayer GMO model. Here you go. Like
Right.
all
If we
these
have
all these multiple crops that could be.
if we have one farm who's willing to put up their barn for a cold press machine, right? All of those other farmers that now have to leave their field, their crops fallow, can then produce hemp during the off seasons when it's already grown all of their crappy soy and all their
Quakers do it.
crappy corn, right? And then you just get that cold press going, and then you just start selling biodiesel and start fueling up these tractors for other farmers, right? Because they need diesel for their farmers. And all you have to do is, as soon as the cops show up, everybody just shuts the fuck up. And if they
Well,
want to
there's
do any
a
tests,
simpler way. There's a
put
simpler
locks
way.
on everything and say, "You're trespassing. Get the hell off of my farm."
There's an easy way. Let's go to the Amish people. No one fucks with the Amish people, so we can go to them.
Yeah.
Amish people in Pennsylvania have hemp production for well, some every Amish community is different, but some Amish communities in Pennsylvania, like Hempland, Pennsylvania, for instance, they have diesel tractors. They have diesel stuff that they grow on their own
Heresy.
farms.
Heresy. They use tractors. They don't use it here. That's
Well, of
no.
course it's heresy, but every community is different. They don't get in each other's way. But all I'm saying is that they were able to grandfather themselves in just by continuing to work on this process. If the fuel prices get up any more for all of these farmers, now they do get tax-free fuel, which kind of makes it difficult because the tax-free fuel is a certain color, and that's only farm fuel, they call it. But if that gets up to a certain point, cold pressing hemp on these farms is going to happen, because there is that
Right.
overhead. So the problem with all of this arbitrage is eventually it destroys itself. And I hope we're looking down the barrel of that gun, because that would be amazing.
Well, as more and more people become aware of these ways to create their own money, to to have people that would come to them because it's cheaper, it's cleaner, and buy their products, and then others have the same idea, and so on and so forth. The more people doing it, the cheaper it gets, right? So it faces the risk of collapse on itself unless someone comes and organize the business. And that's when things get tricky, because it's when someone starts to organize all of the business that all that you have been describing happens. So, and then the prices go up again, and everything goes back to what it was when it was petrol products. it starts very good, but then as soon as it starts making money, as soon as it gets market, someone comes, oh, we need to organize, let's create a syndicate, let's organize all this, right? And that's when things fall down again, because someone is making money on top of all of that, people.
Right. So I'm just thinking about the cold press process as being the first stage in the process, right? What you get out of that, you get hempcrete, you get hemp batteries, you get all of these other processes after pressing it for the oil. That's what you're really looking for. The cold press for that hemp oil, that's sort of that's kind of the byproduct.
Yeah.
The first stage is the byproduct, which is funny enough.
Just think about this. Solid state batteries that are not hemp, just solid state batteries, have been invented for more than 10 years now, right? And they've been promising to substitute the very dangerous batteries that they are putting in electric cars now, right? That can catch fire, that if they crack, as soon as they enter in contact with the air, they are on fire. Some heat up in garages and destroy the entire garage with everybody's cars, everything cuts on fire, and so on and so forth. They have solid state batteries that don't have this problem, that retain more energy, that last longer on the road. And now go and look and tell me which manufacturer is releasing electric cars with solid state batteries. Zero. They are now using what they say a hybrid battery. It's half solid state and it's half lithium ion, right? Which is ridiculous. So there has to be someone above all of this industry telling them what they can't put on and can't put on the market, because
Absolutely. And
all of the industry would benefit saying, well, we want to make a product that is cheaper for us, cheaper for the customer, we make more money, it's safer, right? It doesn't hurt anybody in the production because it's a solid state battery. It doesn't require lithium ion and so on and so forth, right? Why don't they do it? They don't do it because there has to be some organism above all of this that we are talking, above all the governments, above all these presidents that are regulating this process. So the problem doesn't end
and
on the president or on the government. It's way beyond that.
I
Because
think
otherwise,
another validation of that is another validation of that it's kind of a multinational program going on. As to what you're saying is an example of the prohibition of the alcohol, which in the States we think, oh, we were just silly during that time period. Here, no, it was multinational thing going on, right? And the global prohibition of hemp too, right? These are programming things going on, and pertaining to energy again with the battery. Duh. Like, yeah, this is bigger than one nation.
it's every it's the data is applied to everything. Look, the cars, they finally managed to do the engines, not so much here because America is a bit behind on that, but they managed to start producing cars that the efficiency of the thermic engine has doubled, tripled in terms of the fuel you can put in and the power you can get out and the mileage you can get from it, right? And when it get to that point, what did they do? Oh, now we need to put 4 catalyzers in the car. We need to strangle it completely. We so it they yes they make the technology to regress to 40 years ago, right? And now you buy a car. Any person that buys a car that is beyond 2016 will have this process. The diesel will have the AdBlue, which is complete bullshit that ruins the engines.
Urea.
Urine, yeah. The It have these converted catalyzers that have completely different from when they started, right? They now completely clog the engine. You cannot make more than 20,000 kilometers with the car, and you need new catalyzers because your car doesn't even move. It's not making any power. It's completely clogged it. Why? Because those converted catalyzers were made to clean themselves at high speed, at high rotation, which is what you can't do. You cannot accelerate your car, right? you have to go at 30 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. So it never gets to the temperatures that it requires to clean itself. So every time you do 17, 20,000 kilometers in a new car, you need to spend six, seven, $8,000 replacing that equipment, which is an absurd thing. All because of regulations that serve nothing but people making money on top of all of this, right? Because cars' engines became extremely efficient,
Yeah.
extremely low pollutant, because they reduce the chemicals. The engines are killing the chemicals in the combustion that are harmful for the environment, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that they don't produce bad chemicals. I'm just saying that we reached a point in technology some 5 years ago that we have extremely efficient thermal engines. And because they have to implement this net zero suicidal CO2 rate, right? Because they want to push us batteries on cars, which we have not been able to produce efficiently, because electric cars are a menace. Just you can't what can you do with an electric car? I say people, oh, I love my electric car. Okay, let's go up north. Let's do 400 kilometers at 140 miles kilometers an hour. Oh, I can't do that. I have to stop 7 times in the way, and I have to go at very slow speeds because it's not efficient, right? If they wanted to do that, do as some of the northern countries are doing, that installing panels on the roads so that batteries are constantly being charged by induction. You don't ever need to go and charge your car. It's charged by
Yeah.
induction. You just pay a tax fare because you have an electric car, right? And you can move constantly. You never stop to refuel to top of your car. If they really wanted to make the electric car something that worked, they would do it to work, not to limit people, which is what the electric car is. It limits you more than a thermal engine would do.
Well, I think it's funny that all of the videos we see coming out of Iran show this sort of happy, harmonious, no clean cities, no homeless, no drug addicts on the street, sort of bobbing out, and they're the least touched by globalism, right? They've been isolated from globalism for the past 40 years.
That's
And
the
they've got
problem.
all this stuff because they're isolated. That's why they've got to be bombed, is because they've got to be taken down to the level of the rest of us.
But aren't they extremists? I have no
Well,
idea.
they are. They're extremists because they refuse the globalism which has been imposed on them. So
No, I mean, are women going in burqas and highly subjugated, or I don't know. I just
no,
asked.
you're thinking of Saudi Arabia, our ally. They don't. They only have the hijab. They don't have the
No,
burqa.
they, Iran, they had massive protests over the forced wearing of hijabs, they'll like the religious police. There's like the regular government, and then there's the religious government there, and they'll literally stop women on the street and beat them down for not wearing headgear. And I mean, it's a super repressive government. That beyond that, I mean,
Right.
there
But
no one
you
is
see,
worth rooting for.
Because
what you see
wasn't
right
it?
now,
Go ahead.
you see right now in Iran, there's a massive sort of abandoning of Islam for Zoroastrianism, right? So they still have Zarathustra as the central figure, and the Iranians didn't actually get rid of it. So you see a lot more people going back to Zarathustra. Right. And so what they're doing is in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people have had it with the Islamic regime that have ruled over them, but there's really nothing they can do because they've got so many people. The real issue, I think, that this whole war is over is we've got to solidify the old I guess controversies and conflicts, right? Because if you bomb and kill all of these leaders of their government, you are going to rally the people around that government. So the only way you can continue this cold conflict
they were
forever,
totally fracturing until they could. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but
Sorry.
what was the country? It was the first first government leader killed by a missile. I don't remember if it was Gaddafi, but I remember seeing the image. If people go online and see the image of that country before that leader was assassinated by the United States missile, it looked like California. Women were in bikinis, the hair falling down their back, complete freedom of expression. And after they killed the leader, and the US and whatever conglomerate of powers put a new leader in, now everybody's on a hijab and they're highly controlled. Right? This happens in what? It's the 80s. I was a kid when this happened, and I had no notion that they were a free country. Right? But a few years after, it happened to catch it online, and before that, it was a completely free country. Women were in bikinis on the street. Right? There's lots of footage, lots of photographs. There was
Iran and Afghanistan come to mind.
There were no religious authority that limiting what people can do or look like, right? And it was after that guy was killed by an association of Western governments by a missile directly into his house, that the guy that they put there implemented all this religious oppression, right? So I wonder what happens to these countries when they are liberalized by freedom countries or democratic countries, because it seems it gets worse, not better. So the interest is not the population. It's not the population that they're freeing. They're freeing the economy of that country into their pockets. That's what they're doing. They're not freeing anybody. It's just a matter of money.
No, right.
You don't see an invasion to free a people. You see an invasion to free resources. That's what
absolutely.
you see.
No.
Yeah. But they can always say, well, if you don't do this.
Maybe it looks like actually the United States government used to be all about free water, free sea travel, right? I mean, they've gone to war for it like several times. And now it would seem that the United States government, from Trump's latest statement, it would seem that the United States is trying to set up a toll and a control of a waterway in the strait. We'll see what happens.
Well, they did it with Panama.
Pretty wild. Well, I mean, they made it to Panama and then made it and then gave it away, right? So Panama.
But people were trying to flee in the streets, and the tanks were going over the families on the cars, literally smashing the families while they are trying to flee on their cars stuck in traffic. The tanks were over them,
right,
to get to the channel. Okay,
so this brings up sort of what is happening right now globally is you have to have this constant strategy of tension that George Soros calls reflexivity, a state that investor perceptions influence market fundamentals, creating feedback loops that drive markets away from equilibrium, right? So this is what we are seeing right now. You want to drive the markets away from equilibrium so that you can increase the arbitrage, right? Unlike traditional economic theory, efficient markets, Soros argues that biased, imperfect participant views influence reality, leading to boom bust. So he's saying if we are going to arbitrage these markets, which he is the king of arbitrage, he arbitraged the entire British pound, right? A lot of people forget about that because he was able to create a certain amount of tension within the markets. So if you universalize these concepts of reflexivity and start applying them to geopolitics, you could see how the major investors would want to arbitrage those markets to avoid equilibrium. And as we're seeing right now over in Iran, we have certainly avoided equilibrium. The highest amount of profit you can get from these markets is from an arbitrage system that is not in equilibrium. So any sort of uh, relaxation or market competition, that's to be avoided. What you want is you want crisis zones, and in crisis zones you can make so much
Right.
more profit. This is crisis capitalism.
We had my father and I. We
And
had this
there
this
is
this
opportunity.
yeah, this acquaintance with this individual that were making a lot of money with the entrance of the EU, because the EU was paying the fishermen and the people that have the ship boats, not the fishermen themselves, but the people that own the boats, right, to destroy the boats, right, to scrap them. And so they were giving you money to scrap your boats, and then they'll give you money for you to build new boats. And so these people were going directly from one state to the other without the scrapping. It was the same ship. So it came to scrapping and it came out of the other side painted as a new boat. And he told my father this that I never forget. This: we don't make money in stability periods. We create instability to make money. That's how we make money, because during instability no one is checking anything. Just sending money all the way, and those that know how to get that money will get it, because the
Right.
common citizen will not have 40,000 euros at the time to enter in this business where you can make millions and millions. But you have to have money to start it, because you have to pay this hand and that hand and that hand in order to do all this, right? So it's in causing these periods of instability, causing these periods of poverty, of lack of resources, that these people make money from. That's how it works. That's why these companies go to countries that have been destroyed by war. They already had those contracts before the countries are destroyed. They are just waiting for the military to finish their job. Say, can we go in now? Because we want our money. And they go in to rebuild the country, right? They're already hired before even the war is public or anyone knows that there is going to be tension. These people have already been contacted and selected. Which one of you will give more money to us by allowing you to go there and be the ones to rebuild it?
Parallel construction, right? So you've got the bidding war before the disaster even happens. So, do you guys know about the cycles of hurricane capitalism, or the idea of disaster capitalism? This is a common term. So, what you see is a big rush. Everybody goes to the store to get all of the supplies before the hurricane comes and hits. After the hurricane comes and hits, then people come in here into this market with jacked up prices. So they're selling pallets of scrap wood for 16 times the amount that it would normally cost for scrap wood. But here's the issue: they should be
They're willing
charging
to
more.
pay their plumbers and construction workers like way more too. So everyone floods in there to get work. Sorry to interrupt.
Right. But here's the thing: they should be paying more immediately after the disaster, because immediately after the disaster, that's sending an economic signal to all the rest of these people: come down here and try and underbid these other guys who are charging way too much. But here's the problem: if you've pre-scripted the disaster and you've pre-bid on the disaster that hasn't even happened yet, that's the ultimate next level. And so all of these people who are talking about blue roofs and lasers and all the rest of that, they're onto it a little bit. But if you can cause the disaster, have the bidding war before it even happens, then you've got a real market opportunity that a lot of these vultures would be interested in.
Yeah, tell me one thing, because I don't know. Katrina destroyed the whole city, if I remember. Right?
Sort of.
Yeah. Destroyed an embankment of a what do they call it? Not a dam, but essentially holding back water, and a dike, and that flooded.
Yeah, but it appeared on Bad Cop, I think, a movie with Nicolas Cage, that he was injured on that flood. I don't know what city it was that
New
was
Orleans.
completely. destroyed by the flood, right? But the thing is, I remember that 2 years ago, the city was still not rebuilt. It was
There may
the
be parts of it but they're pretty. If it's New Orleans, it's like back, and New Orleans is built in a, a bowl essentially. The whole city is
it was the
buried.
first time. It was the first time an F5 hit. I don't know if it is Katrina. I might saying it wrong. It was the first time an
It
F5 hit,
could be a
right?
different could
And
be a
so
different.
there is this vast uh, urban areas of prefabricated houses or whatever you call it, trailers or whatever, that you see the debris all over the place. Only the streets are clean. The rest is all filled with debris still. And 2 years ago, it has not still been rebuilt. No schools, nothing. It was still everything was destroyed. And yet, every time there is a war somewhere, every single country goes and says, "Let's go and rebuild the resources for these people. Let's create hospitals and schools and let's educate these people." And our own places, we don't do anything. It's like
Right.
Portugal sending millions to either it used to be Africa, to the countries that have all the resources and all the money. We're sending money to them for them to build things, or sending it to now the trend is to send the money to what's the country, the one that Russians are attacking,
Oh,
Ukraine.
Ukraine.
Yeah, now it's
Okay.
sending millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions, billions of dollars have been sent to Ukraine. Where is that money? Who has that money? What has been done to that money? Nothing. Absolutely zero. Right? It's all a machine of washing money.
Right.
Canada has sent more money to Ukraine than it has in its vaults.
Right.
Can you explain that to me? How can a country send more money than it has in its vaults?
You just print it. Again, well, I think the US model has gone worldwide. So what they're doing is by sending money to these places, they can wash it and hopefully make a percentage back. So if they just print it up on a computer and then send it over to
It's
somebody
numbers.
else,
It's fucking
and then
numbers.
it's just numbers. It's just
Fucking numbers
numbers.
on a computer. That amount of money does not exist. It
Right.
doesn't exist. If 2% of the population of any country all decide goes to the ATMs and to their banks and say, "I want my money back," there is not that it doesn't exist for those 2% of people, let alone for the whole population. Money does not exist. It's just numbers in the goddamn computer. The banks are loaning you money for money that is not real, because they can lend you up to 10 times the value of their own company, which includes all assets and includes all the profits from the loans that they just made.
Right.
So, and
Well,
they still can go bankrupt. Explain to me, how is this possible? How can a bank go bankrupt?
right.
Right?
Well, I think here's the thing. You've got all these farmer protests and trucker protests, but what everybody else is missing is if you support these trucker protests and you support these ideas, you've got to create a run on the banks simultaneously. You've got to go to your ATM as soon as they start blocking the roads with these trucks. Go to your ATM and pull out as much cash as you possibly can. You can put it back in afterwards. But it's the binary attacks that are really going to make the difference. You've got to have another secondary source to really start to drain these people of their power. And that, I think that would be a beneficial process. Is it's not just the roads that now you need to worry about. It's the people who are putting a run on the banks. You take that money out and they will be, essentially like a chicken with their head cut off, because they can deal with one problem, but can they deal with two or three or four or five, right? There's lots of other ways that you can start that process. And what you're going to find is that they are powerless to binary attacks like having a trucker protest and having a run on the bank. Those two things in congregate together are going to make it so much tougher for the government to respond to one or the other. And I think that's that's a key that I think a lot of people are missing right now is, as soon as the trucks start blocking roads, that's when you hit the ATM up and you just say, give it all over. And they're like, we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't do it. That's where you really start to create a problem, because all of these people know on some level that it's all made up. It's all fake. And if they can't get their money out, that's when things really start to escalate, and they're going to have to start responding to the demands.
Jay Quells just mentioned a point in the chat that during the trucker protests in Canada, the government had a backlash doing that.
They debanked all these people. Right, they debanked them. So as soon as
for actions that they did before their laws pertaining to.
Right. So for actions, what they did was, instead of the banks getting punished for supporting the governments by everybody putting a run on those banks, instead they put a run on the people who were the truckers. So if you put the run on the banks instead of letting the banks put the run on the truckers, that's when you can actually see some change, because they can't deal with two problems at the same time. They have a very hard time dealing with one problem at a time. Two problems at the same time will cripple them. They are morons. They are essentially just mouthpieces for these corporations. So once they cannot walk and chew gum.
Corporations, not government. It's
right, but it's parallel. It's parallel construction. So as they're doing the bidding in the background, these front pieces, these mouthpieces, these politicians are trying to keep up with that parallel construction. They're not capable of it. They're morons. That's why they were hired. It's a kakistocracy. So if you could start to put more pressure on that kakistocracy, that's when you're going to have a better chance at actually outbidding their ability to put you down.
See if your AI will be able to answer this. Ask him, how much money would you get if you take 1 cent from any existing account in the planet?
Let me see.
It's just 1 cent. And you could do this every single day of the month. So you only be charged 30 cents or 31 cents a month for this operation. I'm not sure it will be able to answer you, but I'm curious.
Well, I mean, all of this stuff is funny money anyway. So it would be roughly 70 million to 77 million USD.
Is he counting the whole world or just the States?
This is the AI answer, so I don't know. World's bankable population is only about 70 to 77 million. Which
people
doesn't make sense if you're talking about all of the money they're printing up. It's just only 70 million are banked in the world. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, you don't have only 70 million people having an account. We have how many billion people in the planet?
Well, again, AI is meant to lie to you. They gave you AI to lie to you.
Yeah, but let's figure out that 30% of the billion people living in the planet have a bank account, right? 30%. If you take 1 cent a day, right, from any account, you can make a list and you can give money to 30 people a month or 30 organizations a month, right? It would liberalize the world. It will revolutionize science, invention, progression, right? They don't do it because if they do it, they lose control, because money makes money, and money provides innovation or strangles it according to what they need. It's like people, I want a diamond for my wedding ring, and diamonds are this and diamonds are that. Diamonds are only valuable because they keep them in warehouses filled with them in order to inflate the price. They only allow a few of them to come out every year to the market. Because if they reveal to the world how many diamonds there are, really, diamonds would worth as much as a grain of sand in the beach. It's all about how you manage what the product you have and how you are allowed to manage the product that you have, right? It's the same with the diamonds, it's the same with the batteries that we're discussing, the same with every single product. Is controlled in order to make it valuable. Because we are not in a planet that has overpopulation. There is overpopulation in certain areas, but not related to the planet itself. We are not in a planet with reduced resources. We are in a planet where a few are controlling those resources, which is semantics, but it makes all the difference, right? And in truth, what we all want is what we've been fighting all along. That is this globalization. Because we are one
And
planet.
add,
We are one
add to what you're
planet.
saying.
Sorry?
It's not the number. I would just add to what you're saying. It's not the number in the population. It's the amount of greed that certain people in the population have among us.
A
It's the
very
greed.
few.
It's not
A
the,
very
not the
few.
numbers.
Right? So if cultures were respected,
Oligarchy.
if cultures were respected, if systems were implemented that everybody on Earth gets the same opportunities, right, we'd live in a much better planet. The problem is this few 80 families wouldn't make money. They would be just another Earthling, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's more like an 80-20 Pareto principle. So 20% of the population is doing the vast majority of the work for the other 80%. And we see that population distribution all across the world. I don't know if you've ever looked up Wilfredo Pareto and the Pareto principle. 80-20 is sort of what we're talking
Sure.
about because
Sure.
where is the production taking place, where is the consumption taking place, and the 80% of the world are consuming what 20% of the world are producing, and that's really the distribution that is the most effective, at least in terms of generalization. The problem is that 80 families or whatever, that's like makes up a sliver of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right? And that is the kind of control that has seen the biggest amount of profit in the history of the world because they're able to do the arbitrage. Now, you can get yourself into the arbitrage game, and I think there's actually a benefit to arbitrage, especially if you're talking about emerging systems. If you can arbitrage emerging systems, you make yourself sort of that king. The problem is the government doesn't have those arbitrage connections. They don't have that arbitrage network in place there. So that's what they try to target the most. Disruption when it comes to energy has always been hampered by price controls. And when you've got price controls on energy, this is what allows the government to maintain their arbitrage network. That's, if you look at liberalizing energy, that's really where you get that opportunity because there's a lot more opportunity in building alternative systems and creating that new network as opposed to maintaining the network that is overly specialized. And the over specialization, again, the spoons instead of shovels idea, that over specialization is how they arbitrage the most amount of money out of things like oil and resources and all the rest of this stuff. It's all done by a very small number of people because everybody needs to consume energy.
But Headless and Eaton, when they got to the Industrial Revolution, they didn't have enough people. They were employing children, elderly, women. Make kids, for fuck's sake, make kids because we need people to work on our machines, right? These factories, they all needed people to work in them, right? Now we are moving into a complete different state. We don't need people at all because the machines can do the work themselves. They can even think for fuck's sake. So we
Well, we
don't
still
we
need
don't need the
consumers.
people. We don't need the people, so we have to bring diseases. We have to bring uh, new drugs that kill people. We need to wars. We need
to take the population down because we know we don't need the people. And when we take the jobs from these people in 10, 20, 30 years, we'll have riots in our streets because people still have to eat, right? And there will be no jobs for most of these people. So they have to reduce the population. So now we have to stop having children, control only immigrants can have children. But
there you go. You hit it. You hit it. You're not seeing it though. The immigrants are the new consumer class. They're being subsidized with all of the, the welfare programs for immigrants so they can go out and consume. They're not working for that stuff, but you still need a designated consumer class. There aren't enough consumers for all the things we're producing. So they have to import more consumers from the third world because they've already got all of these trading networks that make the production come here. After it's been produced, it has to come here. We need more consumers. We don't have enough consumers. They're subsidizing consumption, which is that's when you know that a system is completely bankrupt, is when they have to subsidize consumption.
Well, I don't know how it is here, but in Portugal and Europe, they are not consuming. They are creating their own businesses, and they only consume from their own business that pay no taxes. They pay no taxes. So how are they benefiting the system? They are just destroying the system, and they are letting the system collapse by itself. The problem is, the byproduct of this would be that the countries will lose their identity, because these people don't come to these foreign countries to live by the rules and culture of those countries. They come here complaining of their culture, but they implement exactly the same culture. They still use their hijabs, or they still use their rituals. They still use their nasty hygiene customs, right? And they never mingled with the society. Only a few of them do and prosper, because most of them just want to live with the subsidizing that they're getting. They don't need to do anything. And those that produce are those that sell to them. So the society eventually will have to buy to them because other businesses are dying, right? It's creating total chaos, total destruction, anarchy, right? There's areas in Lisbon that they call there is there is this area in the middle of Lisbon whose markets are not regulated by any rules that everybody else has to abide to, right? And they wanted to make it an independent area of the country because they are ruling it basically culturally, economically. They are ruling that section of the city, right? Because the Portuguese don't go there to sell unless you are a hippie and looking to buy food that you have no idea how it was harvested, you have no idea how it was transported. It's in dirty sacks open to the air, right? And that's they're making their own markets from the desert. They're making in the middle of the city with the rats and all of that they don't have on their areas, right?
Here comes
just
a
wanted
new
to bring-
global programming.
Right. So I just wanted to point out here real quick that Germany initially, they were trying to block young men from leaving the country, men ages 17 to 45, and they had to get Bundeswehr approval for stays abroad longer than 3 months. Right, back to that the serfdom angle. And they suspended the military permission requirement, confirming that travel is free again. Now, this did not apply to the immigrants. So they were going to take all of these young men and they were going to say, you're not allowed to leave anymore. We might need you for military service. And oh, by the way, you're going to be completely replaced by these immigrants that we are subsidizing to take your place at home. And then
Bug out on this.
I mean, they're literally saying you matter only as fodder for the cannons that we're going to throw you into. You don't get anything else.
This is a dire topic, and I mean it as a potential global program by way of what's going on in the States right now. Headless, will you bring up what the laws that just changed to the United States draft? This just got changed to where certain crimes marijuana, something or other, possession or called something law, priors were canceled as being an elimination from being in the armed forces as it was prior. And also they increased the age of draftee from 35 to 42 just now.
Right.
So the draft is coming up on strong all over, at least with two examples, but likely beyond that is coming up on strong. And every war in the past, to your point, Edlis, they always killed the best of us. That's why they had in colonial times, they would literally line up the strongest, bravest. Probably a lot of them were really smart among the people and have them shoot each other dead until the last group standing was, oh, we won. Oh, we won. Like, I mean, war is always brutal.
Brother wars are dysgenic by nature.
They kill the best of us, the bravest. I mean, I'm not even talking about biological. We can get in that too, but the bravest and most exceptional individuals. Let's put it right.
The brother wars are dysgenic. What they do is they want to have the best and brightest from these different societies go up against each other and have them kill each other off so that they can maintain the kakistocracy, right? This is another thing that happened with World War I is they killed off 90+% of the aristocrats of Europe. They just put them on the battlefield and had them go at it until there were no more aristocrats left. This is how liberalization happened. So now all of these people that were basically born and bred to defend their own people are now on the battlefields fighting against each other to the death so that no more art projects can be implemented in these downtown areas, so that no more education projects can be implemented, right? A lot of what the aristocracy became after the initial liberalization was a benefactor class, right? So they were the investors. They wanted to see their people prosper. This was a good thing. Well, that was unacceptable. We cannot have that in Europe. What we need is a kakistocracy. So let's put them on a battlefield and have them kill each other, which is what their jobs were ancestrally. They were the officer class in these things. So let's put them in a trench and let's have them kill each other until we can take total control over that society. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you have to imagine the opportunities that it opened after all the people that died on First World War and Second World War.
Won't anyone think of the economic opportunities?
The thing is, and I keep saying this since the beginning, is that it's not a matter of presidents. It's not a matter of governments. It's a matter of who controls the money. Like the other guy said, give me control of the money. I don't care who makes the laws, right? Because it's money that controls everything. It's the people that have the resources. They have the infrastructures to create systems that manage everything. They manage the government because the government cannot survive without them because they dominate the whole system. So even if a government tries and says, "Oh, you are charging too much for the electricity," right? They say, "Yeah, but you're making a good profit from that electricity that we are making too. If we take that away, I don't know if you can survive." Right?
It all comes down to the parable of the broken window. When we talk about arbitrage, when we talk about these different disaster capitalism, all of this stuff comes to this 1850 essay by Frederick Bastiat, which says that, let me pull it up. The famous economic illustration by Frederick Bastiat in the 1850 essay, That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Not Seen, which explains the concept of opportunity cost. It argues that destruction, like a boy breaking a baker's window, isn't a net economic benefit because while it creates work for the glazier, the scene, right, the guy who's making the window, it takes away the money the baker would have spent on something else like shoes or a book or other ovens, right? The parable teaches that focusing only on immediate visible effects like job creation from repairs ignores the lost opportunities and resources that could have been used elsewhere, a fallacy that is often applied to government spending and disaster recovery. And they don't list it here, but warfare. Warfare is the ultimate broken window fallacy, especially when you've got places like Ukraine, where you've got more money than is in the existence of that country's reserves being sent over to places that are at war to rebuild them. It's the same freaking broken window
Name me
fallacy.
one thing that money has been used. One.
Can't do it.
And explain to me how is a mediocre comedian, probably a faggot, although I have nothing against it, but a mediocre comedian that had a very meager bank account is now one of the richest persons in the planet. Explain to me that in the middle of a war. And I'm not saying that the Russians aren't guilty or the Ukrainians aren't guilty. I'm not entering into any of that. I'm just showing the hypocrisy of this whole system. That guy was a nobody, a ridiculous nobody. And he accepted the mission. And that mission is, we are going to destroy your country. You're going to destroy your own citizens, but you're going to get filthy rich. More money that you can ever imagine in your life. And he accepted
Don't you think
it.
you're making him out to be guilty when Russia is the guilty party?
They're
of
all
course
guilty.
he's guilty of many things, but he's not.
They are all guilty, Ethan. I'm not defending anyone. I'm not defending anyone. They're
It
all
takes Russia to break the window. It takes Russia to break the window for Zelensky to repair the window.
They all work for the same guy. That's the problem, Ethan. While we are discussing who is the guilty, they are making money and destroying everything because they are all guilty.
I was
they are
just saying
working for the same
okay,
guy.
that's fair. That's fair enough. I'm just saying what earlier you're making him out to be more guilty than Putin. I think if anyone's more guilty,
because Putin has done that many years in the past. This guy is visible today and now. He's someone that came from nothing, and it's visible day and now. Putin happened that happened to Putin many decades ago, right? I'm just using a contemporary example. That guy has no right to be in the position he is. Right? He was selected because he agreed with the system. He toppled the previous guy because he agreed to build American weapon factories on the goddamn border with Russia, which was declared completely illegal for that state, and he agreed with it.
A lot of recent European history was the United States offering European countries milk and honey, and they took that offer because they were faced with AKs and gulags on the other side. It was inevitable war with Russia or make money with the U.S. I'm not saying that making money with the U.S. doesn't come with moral flaws, but I'm just saying like they were presented with doing business or doing war. So they all chose being with the United States because Russia was going to come back for them. They all saw that.
Well, we all know that America's primary interest right now is in the business of disaster capitalism. We can see it all over the world simultaneously, and there's just absolutely no way.
Yeah,
there's absolutely no way for the Ukrainian people to prosper when you're given the option of disaster capitalism A or disaster capitalism B.
Well, I think like you mentioned how part of the reason Iran might have been invaded recently is because they were prospering on their own. In fact, Ukraine too was prospering on their own relative to Russia, their Slavic brother, basically, and all kinds of relationships that were very intimate. We're seeing that the Slavic people in Ukraine were actually coming up and had bathrooms and this and that were much more only in the cities in Russia, right?
Having bathrooms?
So that was a big. I would say too that's what that was the perspective. It's actually funny, but like literally, like the joke in the first part of the invasion was how Russians were stealing toilets and washing machines.
Yeah, but imagine
so
this. If you want one day to conquer Canada, all you need, and I'm not talking about governments, I'm talking about the people above this, all they need is to make Russia start building weapons on Canada. The closer to the border, the better, right? Let's install some Russian weapon uh, um, factories on Canada.
Well,
It would be war
that, I mean,
immediately, right? And that's what
it's
America
even
did in
worse
Ukraine.
than-
They knew what they were doing. They knew that it was going to cause a war. That's what the
Right.
point that I'm
Well,
making here.
but I would say too that it's impossible for one country to dictate what another country does by
Headless, you cannot go
not it's
into a
impossible,
zoo.
but it's impossible to be morally correct.
You cannot go into a
Right, to
zoo,
dictate what
open
another
the
nation
lion
does.
cage, go inside and slap the lion and not expect to be beaten.
No, I get it. And, the real issue is that it is a kakistocracy. I don't see Zelensky as any more effective or decisive than any leader
Yeah,
in the
it's just
United
another
States.
pawn, another
He's an
pawn on the chessboard.
He's
An
an
expendable
actor.
one.
He's no better than Trump. When you point out how inappropriate he is, I can only think of Trump, who is also at best an actor.
Well, they are all
Also,
expendable.
Zelensky is.
They are all
I'm
expendable. We are
saying they're
putting.
not. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that
It's
they're
the
both.
numbers
it's
that matter. It's the numbers that matter. And when you can start to deplete or change the trajectory of the numbers that they're all paying attention to, that's when things really start to change. But if we're all looking at the faces instead of the numbers behind the faces, we're all being fooled, right? That's what we need to keep our eyes on, is those numbers behind the faces, because those projections and those ideas that are going into those projections, that's the power behind the throne. And I think we all know that for a fact. But, I think this has been a great episode. We've gone for about 2.5 hours. And we could probably wrap it up.
Change the world, and tomorrow is going to be a bright day.
Well, let's figure out how to change those numbers, man. I mean, we can change the projections in small ways to create big problems
We
for the
need to
worst
stop
type of
attacking
people.
presidents and governments, and we need to stop
Right.
attacking money. Which
Right.
money is freedom. Associate knowledge. All what you were saying, those cold presses is one of the ways to do it. There's many ways that people can create their own economical systems and become independent, but not so independent that they say, "Ooh, we have to destroy them." It has to be small steps and with people backing it up, because the people is what sustain governments, and governments are what sustain those that are above them. So we need to go step by step, bringing people, creating communities that are self-sufficient, that are well organized, that pay their taxes, right? So it goes under the radar until it's too late.
Well, it's all a projection, and I think what we need to do is start making projections of our own. So, if you could say, hey, the cost of violence against us here by keeping us in the country is going to cost way more than anything you'll ever get back on this war, that is going to change the projection. But until that projection comes into their minds, we're never going to actually see any change. But we've got to make it a lot more expensive to do dysgenic things to us. And I think that's the key, is how do we make it more expensive to hurt us? That's the real power behind the throne right there. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you again on another Trialogue, and see you later.